If you were born in the time of Julius Caesar, a single redwood might still have been young. Now picture men, armed only with axes and saws, bringing down a living thing older than the Roman Empire for lumber worth a fortune. These trees stood over 350 feet tall, their wood immune to fire, rot, and time itself, and the only way in was to build railroads deep into untouched wilderness before the first cut. But what pushed an industry to gamble everything on giants that had survived thousands of years, only to fall in a matter of days? A redwood cut in 1900 had already weathered 2,000 winters. Its first roots pushed into soil as Roman legions marched across Europe, centuries before the English language even existed. These trees, coast redwoods and giant sequoias, do not measure their lives in decades or even centuries. For them, 1,000 years is just the beginning. Dendrochronologists like Dr. Stephen Sillett have counted more than 2,000 rings in a single redwood core, each ring marking another year survived. Drought, fire, flood, and storm repeated over and over for millennia. In the Sierra Nevada, giant sequoias have reached 3,200 years, predating the pyramids of Giza. A redwood at 350 years old is considered young. At 1,000, it is just approaching maturity. These trees have stood through the fall of Rome, the rise and fall of empires, the Renaissance, the founding of America, and the Civil War, entire eras passing like seasons in their lifespans. When a logger's axe finally bit into the trunk, it was not just wood that fell. It was a living record of everything the world had been since the ancient world. Dr. Sillett describes it as reading history written in wood, 2,000 years of survival, cut down in days. The true scale of time held in these forests is almost beyond comprehension. To stand before a redwood is to stand before a witness to all of human history, and then to watch as that witness is silenced with a single decision. A mature coastal redwood towered over 350 feet, its crown lost in coastal fog high above the forest floor. The largest giant stretched past 370 feet, taller than the Statue of Liberty, and measured 15 to 20 feet thick at the base. In the Sierra Nevada, giant sequoias could reach 40 feet across, their trunks as wide as a city bus is long. Standing, a single redwood weighed as much as 500 tons. When one of these trees finally fell, the ground shook for hundreds of yards, the impact burying the trunk deep into the soil and sending debris flying like shrapnel. But it wasn't just the size that drew men and money from across the country. Redwood lumber was unlike anything else. The wood was saturated with tannins, natural chemicals that made it immune to termites and nearly impervious to rot. Fungus and decay organisms found no purchase. Railroad engineers prized redwood for ties, knowing it could sit in wet ground for decades without breaking down. Its resistance to fire made it the backbone of mining timbers, docks, and buildings in every boomtown from San Francisco to Shanghai. The value was staggering. One tree could yield enough lumber to frame 20 houses. Profits from a single redwood ran as high as $5,000 in 1900, more than a worker could earn in a decade. Forest historians describe the operation as industrial conquest. Before a single axe was swung, companies invested tens of thousands of dollars, laying 20 miles of rail through untouched forest, building entire camps, all for the promise of timber that seemed inexhaustible. The scale and fortune at stake made the risk worth it. What followed was a race to bring down the oldest living things on Earth, using nothing but steel, sweat, and willpower. Springboards were the only way to reach solid wood on a redwood's massive trunk. Fallers cut deep notches 10 to 15 feet above the ground, then wedged in sturdy planks just wide enough for a man's boots and a swinging axe. Two men balanced side by side, hundreds of pounds of muscle and steel perched on boards jammed into living bark. No harness, no safety net. Just the hiss of breath and the creak of wood underfoot. Each man gripped a double-bit axe, 8 to 12 pounds of sharpened steel at the end of a 3-foot handle. The first blow bit into the grain, sending red chips flying. The rhythm set in, backs arched, shoulders strained, axes rising and falling in perfect time. Every swing had to count. The wood was dense, fibrous, and unyielding, the undercut growing slowly, inch by inch. Sweat soaked through shirts, sawdust clung to skin and stung the eyes, hands bled through leather gloves. When the notch was finally deep enough, the misery whip came out, a crosscut saw up to 16 feet long. Two men pulled in sync, the blade singing through 2,000 years of growth. Hours passed, arms shook. Below, the forest floor waited, silent but for the steady rasp of steel on wood. One slip, and a man could fall 15 feet onto the saw or the tangled roots below. The danger was constant, but the work never paused. The tree demanded everything. The final cut split the silence with a sound like gunfire, wood fibers tearing apart, centuries of growth surrendering in a single instant. The trunk, 20 feet thick and weighing over 400 tons, began to lean. Gravity took hold. The top swayed, then the entire tree crashed to earth in a roar that shook the forest for half a mile. Limbs exploded as they hit the ground. The impact buried the butt of the log deep into the soil, sending a shockwave through the earth and a cloud of debris into the air. Sometimes the force toppled neighboring giants, a chain reaction of destruction. But not every fall went as planned. Loggers dreaded the barber chair, a vertical split up the trunk that could send a slab of wood shooting backward with lethal force. More than one crewman died instantly when the trunk split and kicked out, their names lost to company ledgers and coroner's notes. Once the dust settled, the work changed, but the danger didn't. Steam-powered donkey engines were fired up, their winches ready to haul the first section, 40 or 50 tons of redwood, out of the forest. Steel cables, stretched to their limit, groaned under the load. Every logger knew what happened if a cable snapped. It whipped through the woods at bullet speed, cutting down anything in its path. As one survivor put it, you'd hear the cable sing, then nothing. The forest floor, moments before alive with men, would fall silent again. The giant now horizontal. The cost measured in both timber and blood. Before loggers arrived, old-growth coastal redwoods covered nearly 2 million acres along the northern California coast. Today, only about 100,000 acres remain, a loss of 95%. What once stretched in an unbroken green canopy from Big Sur to the Oregon border now survives in isolated pockets, protected by state and national parks. The numbers are stark. Out of every 20 acres that stood for thousands of years, only one is left. The rest became lumber, railroad ties, and vanished into the infrastructure of a growing nation. Recovery is not measured in decades or even centuries. Second-growth redwoods can fill the gaps in a human lifetime. But to rebuild a true old-growth forest with its cathedral-like columns, layered canopies, and ancient biodiversity would take at least 500 to 1,000 years. The ecosystem that developed over tens of thousands of years was erased in less than a century. What remains is only a shadow of what was lost. Stumps the size of small cabins still dot the forests of Northern California, a silent record of what was lost. In some places, families built entire houses atop these remnants, 20 feet across, their porches ringed by the scars of saw blades and springboards. The wood from these ancient trees endures as well, found in the bones of old California homes, its grain straight and clear, unchanged after 100 years. These are not just relics, they are reminders of a living lineage that survived for 200 million years, through ice ages, fire, and flood. Even now, redwoods and sequoias persist. They're species older than the dinosaurs, but the true giants are mostly gone. Park rangers walk among these stumps and feel the weight of both achievement and loss. As one ranger put it, only 5% of old growth remains. The rest became houses, railroads, and docks. The Save the Redwoods League was born from this realization. A promise that what little endures must be protected, not just for memory, but for the future. Today, less than 5% of old-growth redwoods remain, a living record almost erased in a single century. What we do now decides if these ancient survivors will endure for another 1,000 years or become just memory and lumber. The choice, this time, is entirely ours.